is happening right now, right this second in Washington, in the Senate. And this is a bit of a surprise. At 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey started talking on the floor of the Senate. And I think to the surprise of all his colleagues, he soon made clear that he is not intending to stop talking tonight.
Tonight, I rise with the intention of getting in some good trouble. I rise with the intention of disrupting the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as I am physically able. I rise tonight because I believe sincerely that our country is in crisis. Republicans as well as Democrats are talking to me about what they feel is a sense of dread about a growing crisis, or what they point to about what is going wrong, that bedrock commitments in our country that both sides rely on, that people from all backgrounds rely on, those bedrock commitments are being broken. Unnecessary hardships are being borne by Americans of all backgrounds. And institutions which are special in America, which are precious, which are unique in our country, are being recklessly, and I would say even unconstitutionally affected, attacked, and even shattered. In just 71 days, the President of the United States has inflicted so much harm on Americans' safety, financial stability, the core foundations of our democracy, and even our aspirations as a people from our highest offices, a sense of common decency. These are not normal times in America. And they should not be treated as such.
Again, this does not appear to be a normal speech in the United States Senate. Ongoing right now in Washington, Senator Cory Booker has taken over the Senate floor tonight and is saying that he does not intend to relinquish the floor. He intends to, as he said it, disrupt the normal business of the United States Senate. He says, quote, "for as long as I am physically able." And he is a fit and able man, so I don't know how long that means he's going to be there. The last thing that Senator Booker was involved in that was anything like this was nearly a decade ago, when Senator Chris Murphy, you may remember this, held the floor for 15 hours. This was in protest of gun violence. It was right after the Pulse nightclub massacre in 2016. Senator Cory Booker actually supported him for those 15 hours and participated in part of that filibuster. That 15-hour-plus filibuster succeeded 9 years ago in forcing the Senate to allow some votes on some gun safety laws. The following year, 2017, Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley held the floor for more than 15 hours, protesting Republicans effectively stealing a seat on the United States Supreme Court when they would not allow confirmation proceedings to go ahead for President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, and they instead essentially held that seat open until Donald Trump could put a Republican nominee on the bench instead. In terms of the record here, the longest filibuster in American history was 1957. Radical segregationist Strom Thurmond held the Senate floor for 24 hours and 18 minutes, all to block the passage of a civil rights bill. I do not know if Senator Cory Booker intends to try to go that long. I don't know if it's humanly possible to do that without sitting down. Without taking a bathroom break. I think Senator Thurmond did take a bathroom break, but senators now would not be allowed to do that. That said, 24 hours is almost humanly impossible. Senator Cory Booker started tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. He said, "I rise tonight with the intention of disrupting the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as I am physically able." I do not know how long Senator Cory Booker is going to be out there, but it looks like he's intending to be there for the long haul. So we will have eyes on that all night. We've got Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, former chair of the Progressive Caucus, who's going to be joining us in just a moment. We'll be checking in on what's going on with Senator Booker over the course of the night. We'll check in on what's going on to the reaction, with the reaction to what he's doing there. Eyes on that over the course of the night tonight. Of course, it is only U.S. senators who can hold the floor of the U.S. Senate. But in the past few days, we've seen thousands of Americans hold down a little patch of sidewalk somewhere near their local Tesla dealership. Literally thousands of Americans this weekend put the phone down, got offline, put on their sturdy shoes, and went out to a Tesla dealership somewhere near them. There were hundreds of protests this weekend at Tesla showrooms and dealerships, all against the billionaire owner of Tesla, who, of course, purchased himself a U.S. presidential election this fall and who has since busied himself with the apparently exhilarating task of destroying the U.S. government. These protests this weekend in Columbus, Ohio, and New York City, I've been showing you, but they really were everywhere. I mean, look at these. These were protests against President Trump's top campaign donor in Detroit, Michigan, and Washington, D.C., and Seattle, and New Orleans, and Brooklyn, New York. There were protests against Elon Musk, against the man who bought Donald Trump the presidency, in Savannah, Georgia, and Mesa, Arizona, and Jacksonville, Florida, and El Paso, Texas, Buffalo, New York, Berkeley, California. This was some of the signs in Claremont, Florida, just west of Orlando. Unplug unelected Elon, quit buying elections. This was a good one. Call your representatives repeatedly. This one, sorry to dorks everywhere. I'm one of you, but fascist dork kind of works as a sign. Also this one, perfume smells good, Musk stinks. Forgive me on this one. I don't mean for this to be an ad hominem attack on the way Mr. Musk smells. I have no idea how he smells. I just wanted to point out, though, that from places as disparate as Florida and also Mount Kisco, New York, the theme of Elon Musk being a stinker is kind of turned out to be a thing at these protests. Musk is the scent of corruption. This was Akron, Ohio this weekend. We love the USA, not oligarchy. Also, DOGE stands for D-O-G-E, deranged oligarchs get everything. This was Pasadena, California. Don't test drive fascism. This was Cathedral City, California. Dogs hate DOGE. They call Cathedral City Cat City, so you know you were going to see some annoyed dogs at this protest. This was Rockville, Maryland. America is trapped in a burning Tesla. And also this sign, sort of made to look like a highway sign. Trump and Musk look out for billionaires. Who's looking out for you? San Jose, California, your Tesla paid for fascism. In San Francisco, handmade sign, I sold my Tesla. Also this one goes from 0 to 1939 in 3 seconds. Tesla, the swastika. In Vallejo, California, DOGE, D-O-G-E, equals Department of Greed and Evil. Here's one from Texas. The left side of your screen here, this is a sign we saw a week or so ago at an anti-Elon Musk protest in Austin, Texas. You might remember this one. Porsche, fast, Ferrari, faster, Tesla, fascist. But now look, this is on the right side of your screen, also Austin, Texas. This past weekend, different person, update to the sign. NASCAR equals fast, Formula One equals faster, Trump and Musk equal fascist. The protest at the Manhattan Tesla dealership in New York, look at this. Particularly big and particularly dramatic, just brought this corner of New York City to a stop. People also brought tombstones and laid down in front of the dealership in a die-in against what Trump and Musk are doing to the American government and to the country. But these protests really were everywhere, not just in big cities and not just big ones. I mean, look at these protests against Musk and Trump in Chesterfield, Missouri, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Norfolk, Virginia, Rockville, Maryland, like I mentioned before, Tigard, Oregon, West Covina, California. Even on top of the many, many, many protests against Trump's top campaign donor that we saw at Tesla dealerships this weekend, and it does seem like there were hundreds of them. there were still yet more protests against Trump and Musk, like this big one in Kansas City, Missouri on Saturday. People in Kansas City marched about a mile from downtown Kansas City to Union Station. Then they massed at the lawn of the National World War I Museum and Memorial. The same day in Salt Lake City, Utah, people stood up for the trans community at the Utah State Capitol in Salt Lake City on Saturday. On Sunday, there was a really big, look at this, really big show of strength and support for immigrants and against Trump. This was Dallas, Texas. Marchers started at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And they marched to Dallas City Hall. There were angry and fired up town halls this weekend. These were town halls done by Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. She held 2 town halls in her district on Friday night and then again on Saturday during the day. In both cases, she had absolutely full houses in Indiana, hundreds of people inside, and even hundreds of people who couldn't get in, who protested outside. In all cases, Victoria Spartz's constituents just gave her nothing but the hardest of hard times for her professed support for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That said, you know, she's definitely hearing what people are saying to her. Congresswoman Spartz told her constituents at these events this weekend that she understood they were, quote, frustrated, quote, very frustrated with Elon Musk in particular. She admitted that the Signal group text national security debacle, in her words, is, quote, actually very bad. Again, a Republican congresswoman having to admit that as her constituents would not let up on her about it. The following day, Sunday, also in Indiana, of all places, yet more upset constituents flooded an empty seat town hall, which they held for their Republican member of Congress, Jim Baird. Unlike Victoria Spartz, Jim Baird will not actually agree to meet with his constituents, who are equally mad at him. So his constituents held an overstuffed town hall in Lafayette, Indiana this weekend without Congressman Baird in attendance. So Americans are doing stuff. And in large numbers and in disparate places. And the pushback that you see, not just in blue states, but in red states, and not just in blue districts, but in red districts, all of these protests you are seeing, the town halls you are seeing, all the yowling that the American people are doing against Trump and Musk and what they're doing, you never know exactly what effect that's going to have. And where, right? You can see this pushback creating pressure against them, right? Creating self-consciousness among the Republicans who have to try to defend what they're doing and who see how their constituents feel about it. But you never know exactly where it's going to pay off. That said, you know, the calendar says it's spring. And if you are looking for green shoots, they really are everywhere. Consider this inadvertently hilarious press release from the Trump administration. This was flagged by journalist Judd Legum at Popular Information, who has been all over what the Trump administration has been doing to Social Security in particular. You know how we here have been covering for a few weeks now how Trump has published a list of dozens of Social Security field offices that he was going to close all around the country. Once that list was published, you know, as you might expect, people just revolted over his plans to do that. Well, now look at this. Now the Trump administration says they are, quote, correcting the record about Social Security office closings, insisting that you might have received some inaccurate information about those Social Security office closures. They're insisting now that they never had plans to close those offices at all. Yeah, you crazy Americans, you crazy old people, right? Where did you hear that we were going to be closing Social Security offices? We definitely never published this very detailed list of dozens of Social Security offices that we were going to close. And then, when the blowback and the pushback against us doing that knocked us on our butts, we definitely just didn't decide to pretend that it wasn't us and that we'd never said that. Their efforts to dismantle the Social Security agency are as dangerous as anything else they are doing in this country, especially because the people who will be most negatively affected by their dismantling and undermining of the Social Security agency are the people who most need the support that they get from Social Security and who have the fewest resources to try to make up for it if these guys screw it up. It's profoundly dangerous what they are doing. And that's why you're seeing not only old people and disabled people who get Social Security revolting, you're seeing every American with a drop of empathy in their soul revolting over that. Because to do something that irresponsible and cruel to a population to whom we owe so much, and that is, by definition, in need of what that agency provides them, and potentially frail or unable to advocate for themselves when they are hurt by what this administration is doing, yeah, there's going to be pushback with you guys messing with Social Security. Now that there has been pushback that they can't handle, they're just pretending that they weren't attacking Social Security at all. Nice try. The Signal group texting about war plans, that scandal is also continuing to blow up, even though they keep trying to pretend either it didn't happen or it's over now. The Wall Street Journal reporting this weekend that this apparently was not the first time that Trump National Security Advisor Michael Waltz had convened a group of Trump cabinet officials in a group chat on this commercial texting app. Quoting from the Wall Street Journal this weekend, quote, 2 U.S. officials also said that Waltz had created and hosted multiple other sensitive national security conversations on Signal with cabinet members, including separate threads on brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine, as well as other military operations. Sources, quote, declined to address if any classified information was posted in those chats. So, yeah, this thing isn't going away. Wait till we find out what all the other ones were. And then there's Pete Hegseth, the Fox News weekend host who Donald Trump appointed to lead the Defense Department. In recent days, we have learned that Pete Hegseth not only posted a detailed timeline of a forthcoming military strike to that group chat on Signal, which inadvertently included a reporter, Pete Hegseth also, according to the Wall Street Journal, quote, brought his wife, a former Fox News producer, to 2 meetings with foreign military counterparts where sensitive information was discussed. The meetings included the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at NATO, a closed-door meeting of that group, more than 50 countries represented there, and also a very sensitive meeting with the British Defense Secretary. Pete Hegseth has been bringing his wife to these meetings. Does she have a security clearance? This is the same wife, you may recall, who Mr. Hegseth brought with him to his meetings with U.S. senators ahead of his confirmation process for this job. That, of course, made it socially awkward for those senators to ask him at those meetings about the rape allegations that he had faced in California and his alleged serial infidelity and problems with drinking on the job. He has denied the rape allegations in California, and, of course, he was never charged in conjunction with those allegations. That said, the Associated Press is also now reporting on the strange circumstance that has arisen at the Pentagon in Mr. Hegseth's short time there, in which not only is he bringing his wife to sensitive meetings with foreign military leaders, but he's also somehow got himself into a situation where his baby brother, his younger brother, Phil, has also ended up on the plane to Guantanamo with Pete Hegseth, and also on the plane last week to Hawaii. What is his little brother doing there? Good question. Quote, based on Phil Hegseth's publicly available resume, his past experience includes founding his own podcast production company. Okay, so naturally it makes sense that he's now paid by the U.S. taxpayers to go everywhere with his brother, the defense secretary, who has assured us that he definitely won't drink on the job anymore and who apparently thinks it's okay to bring his wife to NATO meetings. This follows Mr. Hegseth also giving a naval officers commission to his personal lawyer and telling him that now Pete Hegseth's personal lawyer will now be in charge of reforming all lawyering in the U.S. military. He's just named him an officer. This, of course, follows Pete Hegseth's fantastically expensive and honestly strange decisions to send not 1 but 2 U.S. Navy destroyers to hover around the U.S. border doing nothing, also to use U.S. military planes to fly handfuls of people around the world in the most expensive possible version of how to do a deportation flight. The New York Times reporting tonight that Hegseth's failed gambit to stand up a U.S. military role at Guantanamo, specifically to make it look like Guantanamo has something to do with Trump's deportations. That gambit has thus far cost taxpayers about $40 million in its first month. Now, this whole Guantanamo thing is a plan that has essentially been scrapped now, but only after Pete Hegseth moved nearly 1,000 U.S. troops there and then back and had them sent up a tent city and then kind of dismantled it.
The Future, Daughters of Liberty, A New Dawn. In 2040, the United States was a fractured nation, still reeling from the fallout of Project 2025. The catastrophic policy that had allowed a resurgence of systemic oppression. The Deep South had seceded once more, forming the antebellum republic, where human trafficking, racial inequality, and gender oppression became tragically normalized. The Second Civil War erupted as the rest of the nation sought to free those trapped in this dystopian regime. After years of bloodshed, Kamala Harris had finally led the Union to victory, restoring a fragile sense of hope. But the battle scars ran deep, especially in places like Louisiana, where the remnants of a broken society still lingered.
For more, click tree link in bio. Sable's Song, A Siren's Journey to Joy. Once upon a time, in a small, worn-out town in Middle America, there lived a little child named Sable. Worn into poverty, Sable's body was frail, so thin that you could see her bones, but her heart was filled with an exuberance that not even hunger could dull. Sable was awkward, with dark, deep-set eyes that sparkled with innocence and wonder. Despite being born a boy, Sable always knew she was different. Inside her lived a girl, bright and effervescent, waiting to bloom.
For more, click tree link in profile.
A Dying Planet, The Last Harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
For more, click Linktree in profile.
Bella the Dog from Springfield, A Tale of Truth and Transformation. In the small, charming town of Springfield, Ohio, lived a regal standard poodle named Bella. Bella belonged to Mrs. Von Thursenberg, a well-known figure in the community, always polished, conservative in manner, but a lifelong Democrat. For years, she hosted elegant soirees, engaging in local politics, and treating her home like a kingdom. Bella had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, complete with fancy collars, custom bow ties, and an endless supply of treats from those who adored her. Recently, however, things had changed. Mrs. Von Thursenberg had been watching a lot of Fox News, and it seemed to have swayed her thinking.
For more, click tree link in profile.
La bola de cristal de la soñadora. En algún lugar de Springfield, Ohio, una niña migrante haitiana y su madre acababan de recoger bayas frescas, nueces, dátiles y frutas para los ancianos del pueblo. Con el dinero que ganaron, se dirigieron al mercado con entusiasmo, planeando comprar verduras para un delicioso estofado de venado que la madre estaba preparando esa noche. Pero cuando llegaron, se encontraron con una escena caótica. Una multitud de partidarios trumpistas, con banderas de una era pasada ondeando en el aire, acusaba falsamente a la madre de ser una sirvienta o mascota de la gente del pueblo.
Para más información haga clic en el enlace del árbol en el perfil.
The Baker and the Handyman's Sweet Connection. In a quaint village nestled in a picturesque valley, there stood a small house in the shape of a mushroom. This whimsical home belonged to a young boy named Jamie, barely out of high school, who had a passion for baking. Inside, his cozy kitchen was always filled with the sweet aroma of cakes, cookies, and all sorts of delightful treats. What made his creation special was that each of his cakes was shaped like tiny mushrooms, a nod to his quirky home. Jamie's baking became the talk of the town. From birthdays to celebrations, everyone in the village adored his sweets.
For more, click link in the bio.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.